Hey, what's up guys, and welcome back to the channel. And today we're getting into some unnerving true Reddit threads, and oh boy, do I have some amazing Reddit threads for you guys today. They are interesting, they're weird, they're unnerving, and they're just going to be super entertaining and, like I said, interesting. So you want to stick around, and please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below if you'd like to see more videos like this in the future. I read every single comment, so please comment down below, and I might reply to it or heart it. But I really appreciate all the support. It means the world. And yeah, this video will be long enough already. So without further ado, let's get into some unnerving true Reddit threads. Neighbor is doing weird things that are threatening to me. Originally posted to r/legal advice. And the post reads as follows. A few weeks ago, a new neighbor moved in across the street. To my knowledge, it's one guy who's about 40 to 50 years old. For the past few weeks since he moved in, he has been taking walks around the neighborhood, and every once in a while when he passes my house, my living room has a window that can see into the front yard, he stands and watches me. When I go outside to investigate, he just says something to the tune of admiring my shingle work or stargazing. He has used these excuses before. He never comes directly onto my property when he does this. A few days ago, I came home, and when I went to pull the trash cans back from the street, my neighbor is sitting on his front porch with a rifle in his lap in plain view. I ask him if there is anything wrong, and he just nods at me. I went back into my house and called the police. Now, the spot I called the police from was in my kitchen. The only way to look into my kitchen from my window is if you walked up to my living room window and peered to the left. After hanging up the phone, I turned towards the living room and saw my neighbor about 2 feet away from my window, peering in with the rifle. I run into my room and lock the door. After the police arrived, I tell them what happened, and they told me that since he wasn't pointing the gun at me, that it wasn't a threat. The most they can do is trespass him, but by the time they arrived, he left his house. Yesterday, I came home at around 10 p.m. and found a dead fish in my mailbox. Without any evidence, how can I stop my neighbor from harassing me? Can I get a restraining order against him? And first off, before we move on to the comments, I just have to say it's insane the police said he wasn't threatening. I mean, because he wasn't pointing the gun at him. I mean, that's wild. Like, this guy is up against your living room window, peering into your house with a gun in his hand, and the police are like, yeah, he wasn't pointing at you. We can't do anything. Like, that isn't threatening enough? Someone walking up to your window, holding a gun, and wanted to do God knows what, and to add on to that, a dead fish in your mailbox, and the police are like, yeah, you know, we can't do anything. That's wild to me. And now let's get into some of the comments on the post. Someone says, make a police report about the dead fish. Make the police take the report, even if you don't actually know for sure who put it there. You have your suspicions. Tell them. If they refuse to take a report, calmly escalate the matter to an officer with a higher standing, and don't leave until a report is taken. Keep all of the police reports you make, and as everyone else has suggested, definitely get a good home security system, preferably with several cameras. Someone else says, I don't know shit about the law, but I'd say you should get a camera installed and probably keen any evidence of things put through your door. Then speak to a police/lawyer to see what your options are. And then the OP said, I'm fully prepared for any future aggression, but I am looking for a non-violent route first. I don't think I had any cause in any of my previous encounters to use force. And then the OP makes another post 8 days later titled, I believe my neighbor has been vandalizing my mailbox and shooting .22 caliber shots at my house. And so wow, that escalated, but let's get into the post. The OP says, so my previous post about this neighbor started here. Since then, I got cameras with night vision, motion detection alerts, window tint for my living room, and big, thick curtains. I also got a few of those stickers for my area of my house that says, insured by Glock. to deter any intruders. Now, the first night I got my cameras, I checked them the morning after to see how they worked. I made sure that there were no blind spots and all of them are fixed with no movement at all. When I checked the cameras the morning before, someone walked up to them wearing all black, including a mask, and pointed them down. When I left for work that morning, someone spray painted a knife on my mailbox. I filed a report with the postal inspector and called the police. The police said without any video evidence, there wasn't much I could do. That night, I woke up to a loud noise hitting my house every so often. I checked my cameras and couldn't see anything, so I went out and investigated and noticed small holes on my house. Looking around the ground, I see discharged rounds. I call the police again and confirm that it was .22 caliber shots from far away. I have a concrete home, so that would explain the lack of penetration. The police offered to have a car patrol the neighborhood and sit outside for 3 days, and nothing happens. I asked them if I could get a protective order from my neighbor, who has a history of being hostile, and they said since I had no direct evidence implicating him, that I can't file it out of nowhere despite previous confrontations. I filed another report with a different officer and got the same spiel. I asked for them to take fingerprints of the bullets, and then they chuckled and put the bullets in a bag and left. 3 days ago, I heard shots again and checked the cameras and noticed they were facing my neighbor's house just where I put them, and I see a silhouette shooting from the middle of my street before stopping and running to the back of my neighbor's house. After that, I call the police in my room while watching the cameras. The police come and do a walk me through with the same BS as last time, even after I showed them the cameras. They knocked on my neighbor's door, and he claimed he heard and saw nothing. After they left, I asked him if he was telling the truth, and he looked at me and smiled. It was very unnerving. I don't know what to do at this point. And now let's get into some of the comments. Someone says, OP, a suggestion for you might be to purchase a trail camera, essentially an outdoor camera that runs on batteries and records to a memory card, and try to place it somewhere non-obvious on the outskirts/edge of your property. A few other thoughts. Go to your local county courthouse and actually inquire there to what the requirements are for a restraining and or no contact order. The police may not be the best persons to ask about if your neighbor qualifies for one. Contact your local chief of police and let them know your property has been vandalized and shot at. Ask if there's anything else that can be done. And I mean, I can't imagine being in the OP's shoes here. They must feel so helpless calling the police, and the police each time are just like, yeah, sorry. Even though you have literally been shot at, have evidence that you've been shot at, and we can't do anything. I mean, I just can't imagine how helpless I would feel if the police just keep telling me, hey, there's nothing you can do, but it just keeps escalating with the neighbor. And then the OP makes an update 3 months later. And weird enough, he never made a post about it, but he posted about it in the comment section of a post, so let's just read it. He says, this similar behavior is something I suffered over the course of 1 to 2 months in Florida. I made posts in LA asking for help and got reasonably good answers. Unfortunately, my neighbor pushed it too far and tried to break in my house in the middle of the night after a series of weird escalating behavior. As a result, I shot him multiple times. I was questioned and interviewed over 7 hours and then released due to Florida's stand your ground laws. Turned out the neighbor was mentally ill and the family is currently trying to sue me for wrongful death. I hope this goes better for the LAOP than me. I should have just moved. And I mean, what a chilling final update. I mean, the OP never gave us such an extensive update. I mean, it's understandable why. I don't think anybody would ever want to write out the events of them killing somebody, if that makes sense, like in detail. And so it makes sense why we never got such a written out and long update compared to the first ones, because, I mean, if I were the guy, I wouldn't want to, write out me shooting someone and the events that transpired. But just so sad that even had to happen. I mean, the OP took all the right steps. He called the police. He got cameras. He called the police on every single instance. He told the police who he thought it was, etc. And the police still did nothing. And he ended up having to shoot and kill his neighbor. Even though he said, hey, I don't think my neighbor is very mentally sound. He's going a little bit off the wire. But the police said, hey, we can't do anything. I mean, the OP literally saw his neighbor standing in front of his window with a gun. Like, how much more of a terrifying image can you conjure up inside your head than that? Like, that gives me goosebumps even just thinking about. And the police are just like, hey, he wasn't pointing at you, so we can't do anything. And then this guy ends up shooting the OP's house, spray painting a knife on his mailbox. He did put a dead fish in his mailbox, etc. And the OP ended up having to shoot the man and kill him. And it's so unfortunate that he will have to live with that for the rest of his life, even though he took all the right steps. The only thing he didn't do was move, and that's not easy to just move on a whim, so it's understandable. But it's just so unfortunate that this situation even had to happen. But like, seriously, this is such a terrifying scenario. I mean, like, the OP must have just felt so helpless going through his life every single night, wondering if someone's going to break in. And eventually the guy did, and the OP had to shoot and kill him. But yeah, this is seriously such a unnerving and terrifying Reddit thread, because it ended up in someone actually dying and the OP almost, getting injured himself. Like, who knows what would have happened if that guy or his neighbor got into the house? Was the neighbor trying to kill the OP? Was he trying to rob him? Was he trying to do whatever? Like, just such a scary scenario, but hopefully the OP is doing better now. But just wow. On to the next one. Am I the asshole for hating my wife's creepy hobby project? And the post reads as follows. Okay, this sounds insane, but I swear my wife is totally normal otherwise, which makes this so strange to me. For context, we're both in our later 30s and live in a pretty typical suburban neighborhood where we all know each other. My wife has always loved trashy movies and shows about infidelities, and she eats up true crime about spouses killing their cheating partners too. She just says something about it makes her morbidly fascinated, in her words. Well, a couple months back, we had a scandal in our neighborhood where a married couple in the neighborhood divorced because the husband cheated. No, there wasn't a murder or anything like that, but she became obsessed with learning every detail from every neighbor. No matter the occasion, be it a baby shower or cookout, she would bring it up hoping there would be any new information. A month later, when I stumbled on the board in her home office, I was doing some cleaning and I found a massive bulletin board facing away, leaning up against the wall. Curiosity got the better of me, and I turned it around to find a literal fucking conspiracy board of all our neighbors' pictures with lines of yarn connecting each other like the fucking Pepe Sylvia meme. I was totally confused and asked what this was, and she told me it was a hobby she had started recently where she would track rumors or likely candidates for cheating on the board. The yarn represented who was possibly cheating with whom. She had clearly gotten all the images on Facebook or some social media and printed them out, and even had a few sticky notes with details. I told her this was creepy and insane, and she said maybe if I was doing it as a man, but she is just having harmless fun as a hobby, and she wouldn't be crazy and try to oust anyone based on rumors. She just feels like a detective. She told me to view it like a creative art piece. I was still super weirded out, but I let it go. I thought about it a lot. Well, every now and then I admit to checking the board when cleaning. But just a couple of days ago, I looked to see that now I was on the board with a yarn attached to a neighbor's wife I am casual friends with. I asked her why she would add me if she thought I was cheating, and she said that it was a different yarn color for potential matches for cheating. She said if it makes me feel better, she was planning on adding herself to the board soon. Well, I got pissed and kind of lost my temper about it. I told her to get rid of the board or our marriage will be in trouble. Things have been super rocky since. Sorry for the long post. I am starting to feel bad and it hit me more than usual this morning. Should I apologize to her? And before you ask, no, I don't suspect her of cheating. Honestly, I wish she was because it would at least make more sense than this. And now let's get into the comments. Someone says, I really couldn't see it getting weirder until she mentioned adding herself to the board. This is a strange game your wife's playing, and it seems like an unhealthy obsession with infidelity. Someone else says, obsession is not healthy and isn't a hobby. She's borderline stalking people because of some weird obsession with the concept of infidelity. She needs therapy. I wouldn't have stayed for a second if my husband did this creepy shit. Someone else says, I'm a big fan of true crime myself and can be nosy about neighborhood gossip, but I would use my yarn to crochet stuff while I watch or listen to true crime YouTube channels. It's absolutely creepy for her to print out pictures of your neighbors and then speculating about you and another neighbor. You don't have to be okay with whatever your spouse does. I would have done the same thing if I was in your shoes. So it seems like everybody is on the same page and says, this is really weird. And now the OP gives us an update. Let's get into it. Anyway, Jesus Christ. Firstly, appreciate all of the concern and NTAs. It gave me the courage to approach her and tell her that while I may have overreacted by threatening our marriage, I think it is a creepy thing to do. She apologized and said she would get rid of the board. I thought we were good. Literally, 2 days later, shit hits the fan. Our happily married next door neighbor finds a woman's bra under the bed that does not belong to her. It doesn't take long for the whole neighborhood to find out. Well, my wife is giddy, like jumping up and down for joy. She shows me the board, which she still didn't trash like she promised, and of course, the husband was marked with yarn, meaning he was likely to cheat. She told me the board was accurate after all, and maybe she should keep her hobby around. I was definitely suspicious, so I looked at the board again later. It looked different from the last time I saw it before the latest scandal. Instead of the yarn connecting to another neighbor, the cheating husband's yarn connected to a post-it with a question mark. Firstly, it was the only question mark there, and I swore it wasn't there the last time I saw the board. So either she changed it after the cheating to prove a point, or slightly before it happened, which made me even more suspicious either way. Now I felt like I was the detective and I was going crazy. I went over to the cheating husbands to ask a few questions. The wife was staying at her parents', so it was just the two of us. I asked him if he actually did it, and he said no, he would never. Then I asked if my wife had been over recently. He said one day, while you were at work, his wife asked her to water a plant they had while they were both away and told her where the key was. So yes, I immediately raised an eyebrow. I asked if he still had the bra, and he was getting nervous and told me not to get the wrong idea. I said, don't worry. He still had the bra, and I looked at it. It was my wife's, but one I knew she almost never wore because it was from a lingerie set I bought her one Christmas, and she said it was uncomfortable. I told my neighbor I needed to talk to my wife and ran out, but I told him not to worry. I approached her with the bra and asked her what was going on. She played stupid, but I told her to cut the BS. I asked if she had either cheated on me with him or planted it there. Either way, she was in trouble. She confessed to planting the bra and said it was to make me admit her hobby was valid or something. Holy shit, this woman's crazy. I flipped on her. I said this was worse than her cheating on me because instead of ruining just our marriage, she ruined our neighbors and ours. I demanded she call the wife and admit to everything, even sending pictures of the board. Oh my God, this is insane. I even showed the Reddit post, which actually helped convince her my wife had planted it rather than cheated on her husband. Well, they made up, but now I have no idea what to do. I am barely speaking to my wife, and it is only a matter of time before the entire neighborhood figures this out. I seriously need advice. Holy shit. That is one of the biggest turns I have I was not seeing that at all. I thought that maybe the wife was, or the bra was going to be mistaken for something and they didn't end up cheating, or even if they did. But I was not expecting for the OP's wife to plant a lingerie or a piece of lingerie under the pillow to sabotage their marriage, to prove her hobby is correct. Like, seriously, that is so utterly ridiculous. I don't even know what the OP should do at this point. I mean, to be honest, like, yeah, like, what do you even do after that? You're just like, holy shit, my wife is crazy. And the OP gives us an update a few months later, and I was not expecting this. And it takes a lot of fun out of the previous post we just read. I mean, I was a little bit giddy and amped up because I was just like, that's insane and that's wild. I was never expecting that. But yeah, this next post is equally as wild. Let's get into it. It's been months since the last update. I'm sorry, I've been busy. Long story short, my wife is in a mental health facility. After what happened previously, I did not speak to my wife for a while. I tried to stay working or out of the house as often as I could. Well, a few weeks passed and time made it seem like less and less of a big deal. Finally, my wife offered to take me out for a very nice dinner and make things up to me. She told me everything was behind her, and while I was avoiding her, she had actually started online therapy to get help and realized now what she did was wrong. I really believed her, and we had a great night. One thing led to another, and yeah, LOL. It took about 2 days after that for her to get a pregnancy test, and she texted me the positive result. Yeah, I know some of you already think I'm a fucking moron, but it had been a rough year, and this made me really happy. I started getting very excited. We started talking about turning my home office to a baby room, looking up ways to prepare, booking appointments, planning a shower, etc. A really fun but whirlwind weekend. Unfortunately, she told me the first ultrasound was at a time I had to be at work and she would have to go alone. Really bummed me out, and I asked her to reschedule, but she said it was the only availability. Well, that next week she went and I waiting for an update or pictures or anything. Nothing. She came home and was super quiet, and I flipped out and got super worried that the worst had happened. I told her I understood she was probably in a lot of pain about something, but she had to tell me. She finally admitted no, it wasn't a miscarriage, but she was actually pregnant for longer than she thought. Longer than the last time we did it. She actually got pregnant during the time I was avoiding her. Obviously, I was so mad and upset, and I couldn't understand why she would do this to me. But then I realized all the signs were there for so long, and all the comments telling me she was probably cheating was right. But I tried to keep a clear head for at least a second because I really love my wife, and I couldn't believe it. I asked her who it could have been, and she actually said she didn't know. She said she hadn't done it with anyone during the time I was avoiding her. She swore it and also didn't know what this meant. I thought about it and realized if she was really pregnant for that long, her tummy should be showing, and it wasn't. I decided to call the place and ask them to confirm what they said. My wife told me it would be a waste of time, and she promised she heard them clearly. So I didn't do it that night, but I couldn't sleep that night without hearing it from the doctors myself. I called the clinic she told me she went to that day before in the morning and asked them to confirm the results. They told me something worse than I expected. She had no visit. She was never there. I didn't understand that at all. Before I talked to my wife again, I did what I should have done in the first place and reverse image searched the pregnancy test image. Yeah, it was on Google from a random years old Facebook post. I was actually really mad at my wife and could not believe she would put me through all this. I confronted her about the pictures and that I called the place and there was no appointment. I told her she had a pattern of lying and this was probably the end of our relationship. But she responded in a way I didn't expect. She burst into tears and went manic, which I did expect, but then said that she had cheated on me and really was pregnant and that I made this up in my head because I couldn't face what she did to me. She said she felt like the devil and the mustache man from World War II, and started sobbing and literally screaming at the top of her lungs. She locked herself in the bathroom and told me she was going to commit S-word over what she did to me. I couldn't get the door open and freaked out. I called the cops and they broke the door down. She was not hurt, but she was really out of it. They took her to get a mental evaluation and she told them everything there. She even started mixing in stuff about the board and how she knew everyone around her was a cheater, so she had done the same because she was in an evil place. She promised them all she was pregnant, but she didn't know who the father was. They tested her while in custody and no pregnancy at all. They told me she was likely suffering from a form of schizophrenia and actually genuinely believed what she was saying, and likely always had to some level, but it seemed to be getting worse. They said she had a symptom called self-accusation and needed help. Well, I got her in a facility last week and she is safe. They are making a little progress. I do not think she thinks she is pregnant anymore. I have visited it a few times, but she is very withdrawn with me and says she feels too guilty to look me in the eye. I think there was definitely meddling at certain parts, like planting evidence, but now I just feel terrible. I did not get her the help she needed when all the real signs were there. I hope her medication starts to help and she can be normal again. And yeah, the neighborhood gossip is having a field day with all of this. Anyway, thanks for listening. I hope this is my last update. Thanks for all the help. And that was indeed not the OP's last update. And the OP gives us an update a few months later titled, "My wife is dead because of this subreddit, and I'm lost." He starts the post by saying, "None of you will probably remember me. I feel stupid for even linking the post, but here was the last update I did. My wife spent a few months in a mental facility. I visited her every day and went along with her like the doctor said to. She would say she was pregnant and I would agree. She named the baby Belaine, so I would say, 'Hi, honey. Hi, Belaine,' every day I went. They prescribed her Cobethny, and over time, things got better. She was acting like her old self again, and forgot about Belaine too. 2 months ago, she was released and the neighbors threw her a little welcome back party, and no hard feelings, obviously, since what happened. Well, a few weeks after she got home, she was talking about how she wanted to move on from all of this and asked me to promise not to talk to anyone about what happened to her. And I said, yeah, but then I remembered that I had posted that update and I started to feel really guilty about it. I asked ChatGPT what I should do since I was lost, and the ChatGPT said to come clean and show her the post and it would be fine and explain. I kept everything anonymous. Well, I did that and she got really mad and freaked out and was really hurt and said I should have uploaded a selfie of her too at that point because of all the detail I shared. She didn't talk to me that night and I asked ChatGPT what to do and it said write a letter. So I had him write a letter to her saying sorry, and I printed it and put it on the kitchen table before I went out to get groceries one morning. First off, this is pretty eerie that this guy's talking to ChatGPT for advice and referring to ChatGPT as he. That is very, very eerie and unsettling, but let's continue. When I came back, it was all torn up and she was gone. She texted me that I was a huge asshole and she had left somewhere she wouldn't tell me. I saw her weekly pill container thing and saw she hadn't taken the dose for that day and yesterday, so obviously I was really worried and went out to find her with the pills. I looked around the entire neighborhood and she still wasn't there. I went home really worried and called her and she didn't pick up any time. I asked ChatGPT, oh boy, yeah, I know I use it a lot. It has been very helpful usually, what to do, and it said to relax, and if she doesn't want to talk, give her space. Oh man, why is this guy asking ChatGPT for life advice? Okay, and then he says, well, I did that for days. I didn't hear anything from her, and I stopped checking. I was sick to my stomach every day, but waited and waited for her to get back to me. The first night, I decided I should delete her location from my phone to give her privacy too, But then I regretted that, but I couldn't add her back without sending a request, so that was a bust. Well, you already saw the title. Some driver had hit her crossing the road a mile off from our neighborhood a few days after she left at night, and she was dead. The cops came to my door and told me. They said the guy wasn't drunk, and he said she was basically laying down on the road, and he couldn't see her at all. Obviously, I pressed charges because he fucking killed her, but I don't just blame him. I also feel like it's my fault for showing her the post and making her leave, but also I feel like it's your fucking fault for this too, and this whole subreddit is to blame. I'm really mad at everything. I barely eat or sleep in the past few weeks, and I don't know what to do. Since you all got me here, I thought I would ask what to do, and don't say therapy. I know that. I go sometimes when I remember, and no, it's not ChatGPT. It's a real person on BetterHelp. Man, that was shocking. This spiraled so fast, and it is so scary to see this guy using ChatGPT as his advice. He's not reaching out to a friend. He's not reaching out to his neighbors, because from what I've read, his neighbors seem very neighborly, if that makes sense. Like, they seem like they want to help each other out. They know each other well. Why wouldn't he go to talk to one of his neighbors for some advice? Obviously, he doesn't want to give away all the information, but that's better than ChatGPT. But Jesus Christ, she's dead. Wow. Let's get into some comments. Listen, I won't say YTA or NTA. You need serious psychiatric support. This is one of the most painful burdens anyone can feel. And listen too, while you made mistakes, we all do. You did not kill your wife. Don't carry that around in your heart. Seek faith, seek counseling, seek kindness. Resolve to become a better person. Maybe look for the hand of God. But above all, do not keep asking Reddit or ChatGPT for help. You need professional support. Please get it now. And I completely agree. And for everyone watching, if you're ever going through something, don't rely on Reddit or ChatGPT for help. That's not the right place to go for help. Please go to a parent, a friend, a school counselor, a counselor, a therapist, the police if it's a necessary situation. But wow, that is so depressing. How he just kept talking to ChatGPT the days, and the ChatGPT kept telling him to wait, and your wife needs distance. And his wife ended up getting hit by a car. Wow. That is truly so disturbing. Someone else comments saying, sweetheart, I think you need to get rid of ChatGPT. It's generative AI and should not be used like a freaking magic 8-ball. I'm sorry to hear about your wife. Sounds like you and her were between a rock and a hard place. My dark humor wants to make some really inappropriate jokes, but that is just a coping mechanism as well. Grief is hard, but it does get easier with time. Someone else says, you're using AI to dictate your decisions. This is just insane to do in a relationship. I'm sorry for your loss. Someone else says, I think ChatGPT killed your wife. Someone else comments saying, I'm sorry for your loss, but it's not your fault, the driver's fault, nor is the fault of anyone on Reddit. She had serious mental health issues and was off of her meds. Sadly, her own actions caused her death. Someone else says, okay, OP, I went back and read the other posts. You are not an asshole. You were just married to an incredibly mentally ill and psychotic person who, unfortunately, could not control herself. Please take time to love yourself. This whole situation was not your fault. Someone else says, using ChatGPT is insane. You really need psychiatric help. This was probably all a butterfly effect from it all, and it's disheartening. But it isn't Reddit's fault either. You asked a generative AI device, and it told you to show the subreddit. You did, and the consequences ensued. And I don't even have words for this one. This is just the most insane Reddit thread I have ever gone into. And it's so depressing because, it started off with like, it was kind of playful, obviously. Like we read the first post. My wife has this weird hobby project. It's a little bit concerning, but, it's whatever. And then she plants the bra. And then it ends up happening that she has schizophrenia. And then she keeps lying. And then she keeps lying. And then she gets the help. And then she thinks she has a baby. And then that final post is so eerie because her death was so preventable if he didn't ask ChatGPT for help. Like, oh my God, that is like the most dystopian thing ever. A man asking a AI computer on what to do, and the computer told him to just keep your distance. But if he would have talked to any person, any real person, they would have been like, hey, your wife's missing. She's mentally ill without her medication. She has schizophrenia without her medication. Go find her or call the police to find her. Oh my God, man. This is seriously so depressing because her death was so preventable. Like I said, if he would have talked to any real person, they would have told him to go find her. She has schizophrenia, she's off her meds, and she needs help. But instead, he talked to ChatGPT, and she's dead. I hope the OP is doing better now, but I think he needs a lot of help as well to move through this and get his life back on track, and hopefully he can. Just such a depressing thread. And just, wow, I have no words. There's something going on in my house that has me a bit stumped. Originally posted to r/RBI, and the post reads as follows. I don't know if this problem is an RBI problem, so if this fits somewhere else that you know of, please tell me. For the past couple of days, I've had this issue. I'm pretty sure someone is in my house, but I can't exactly prove how. And yes, I called the police this morning. They don't seem to know either, but I'll get to that in the next couple of paragraphs. I'm 24 female, if that'll help in explaining my predicament. I live alone. I keep a tidy house, more so than most people. My bedroom can be a bit disorganized at times, but the rest of my house is well organized, which is why I was able to detect something was off. I came home from work a couple of nights ago and found a bottle of scotch sitting on my stove. It was my scotch. That's not the mystery. I use it for cooking. It sits near the stove, never on it, and I don't remember the last time I had hands on it. I was able to convince myself that I had maybe moved it while cleaning the counter and subconsciously put it there and hadn't realized it. I'm still not even against believing that, but I'm making a point. The second thing I noticed, which I know wasn't a fluke on my part, was an energy drink sitting in my fridge. I like to drink the grape NOS energy, but I like to drink them warm, and I'll leave them out for an hour or two to let them warm up. I never put them in the fridge, but while I was running errands, I get back and find this thing sitting in my fridge, which I just wouldn't do. It was the very early morning hours, about 2 a.m. give or take, and I can hear footsteps inside of my house. They weren't on that floor though. More specifically, they were on the ceiling. I have a metal roof, and the sound of something hitting that is very different from the sounds I was hearing. These definitely sounded like they were coming from the attic. Also, I don't have an attic. I called the police. They were not very much help. Wasn't much they could really do. They looked around my house for entries. Nothing seemed to really stick out. I did this myself, but I felt a second set of eyes could hopefully point me to something that I didn't see. But as I stated, they weren't much help. Not trying to take jabs at the police, but it is what it is. I worked the day shift today. When I got back home, I found a few of my ceiling tiles on the ground. This was alarming. It was like someone had stepped through my ceiling. I have no clue what to do. I had my neighbor from next door come over to help me find a place someone could have gotten in. My windows are always locked. There's one place on the outside of the house that is theoretically able to be accessed and entered through, but it would require a ladder and a screwdriver to get through. And I just don't see how someone could access that without raising alarms from the neighbors. Any and all advice and recommendations are welcome. And because I know people will suggest this, cameras are already ordered. And then the OP makes a quick update saying, "Thank you for everyone responding. I feel the need to clear a couple of things up that seem to be confusing people. First, I was in a jumpy state of mind when I initially wrote this, and I'm realizing that I wasn't clear in explaining some things. I've addressed it in many of the comments, but I'll address it here to hopefully be more informative. The 'I don't have an attic' comment was a poor choice of words. I mean that there doesn't appear to be any way up there that anyone has been able to find from within the house. There's obviously a way up there, albeit a challenging one. There's definitely space for movement on the upper portion of the house. Second, the NOS. I completely take responsibility for this one. I did absolutely zero to clarify what I meant. The flavor of NOS that I like isn't sold commercially in packs from the grocery store. I have to buy them cold from the cooler at the gas station and then let them sit out to warm up. I understand that my initial explanation was a bit confusing, and I'm sorry about that. Also, I called my older brother and asked if he could come over and check out my place with me just so I can have an unbiased set of eyes on the property to see if a conclusion can be reached. People expressed concern that I was staying in the house, and I very much appreciate not only these users, but everyone who offered advice. I'll be staying with my brother and sister-in-law until the matter is resolved. And now let's get into the comments and see what the commenters think. Someone says, "Sharing this story since you mentioned you rent. A friend of mine from years ago kept feeling like something was going on with her food. Things like being sure she hadn't opened something yet and finding it open, cases of soda seemingly to move on their own, and food being nearly gone when she thought she still had a serving left. Turned out one of the maintenance workers her landlord hired was letting himself in and having snacks in during her workday." And then the OP responds saying, "I recall a Reddit story from a few years ago where a mother and a daughter were being stalked and the house was being accessed when they weren't home. It was very voyeur type behavior where their bras and underwear were being gone through and tablets were attempted to be accessed. It turned out to be the teenage son of one of their maintenance workers who made a copy of his dad's keys or something along those lines. I don't have such services at my house, but your comment does raise a very valid point about safety and accountability. Thank you so much." And then someone else comments saying, "Number 1, do you have cameras in your house? If not, get some. If you feel weird about filming when you're at home, only time them on when you're gone. Number 2, do you have cameras outside of your house? If not, get some. Number 3, do you have motion sensors in the house? Number 4, old school trick / spycraft. A, photograph your house as you leave so you can compare when you get back to see if anything's different. If so, photograph again to document the difference. B, tape a hair or other such filament to your front door across the gap to see if it has been disturbed when you get back. You could also do this with the fridge door. C, you could sprinkle flour or something on the floor to see if there are footprints when you get back. Number 5, carbon monoxide detector. If you don't understand why, look it up on Reddit, a classic story. And number 6, edit. If one of your other posts you mentioned you like ghost stories and haunted house stories, could this be a ghost / haunted house story you are foisting upon us? And then the OP responds saying, questions 1 and 3 were already covered pretty much in my last sentence on the post, haha. No, I don't, but I do have them ordered. Number 4, yeah, those are good suggestions that I may utilize myself. And number 5, I have 2 actually, and she's referring to the carbon monoxide detectors, saying I have them because of the sticky note incident, which is the story I'm assuming you're referring to. And then the OP makes a chilling update to her original post, saying, edit 2. Culprit found. Not what I was expecting, but a handful of commenters were right. I'll update in a full post when I have a minute. I'm fine. I'm safe. I'm not in the house. And thanks to everyone expressing concern. I won't be staying in the house anymore. I'm going to find somewhere else to live in. And that is a terrifying update, but luckily the OP said they're fine, I'm safe, etc. But I'm just so curious as to who this mysterious person is because she said they found the culprit. So let's get into the next update. Hello everyone. If you're here from my previous post, thank you. If you haven't read that post, maybe read that one first to understand. First, a big thank you is in order. You were all very helpful in your suggestions, and quite a few of the comments were correct. If it wasn't for the insistence of the comments, I would have assumed I was still doing things correctly and maybe dead sooner rather than later. I called my older brother and asked him to come check out my house with me and see if there was something in the house that I was missing. He was able to get a look at the entry point at the top of the house. The screws weren't turnable, and he eventually abandoned the attempt to open it. There was a very unlikely chance that anyone was using this to get inside. But the scarier part is coming right now. Carbon monoxide was a big thing recommended as the culprit in my original post from the comment section. I informed most users that I have not one, but 2 carbon monoxide detectors in my home. I was very convinced that wasn't the reason behind it. But my brother had decided to check my fuse box, which is located on the outside of my house. One of the fuses was turned off. It just so happened to be the fuse that was powering the outlets behind used for the carbon monoxide detectors in my house. He said with the recent freeze, it was possible that the fuse had frozen and then switched off gradually once the ice had thawed during the day. I don't know about all that, but it sounds plausible enough. Finally, once the fuse was turned back on, he recalibrated my carbon monoxide detectors. I admittedly don't know how to do this, and they were higher than normal levels of carbon monoxide detected in the house. With the heat running and without proper ventilation, I seem to have been doing these strange things in an altered state of mind, or just downright hallucinating. As for my ceiling tiles on the floor, I don't know, but it was near a closet. And when I looked at an old picture I had taken inside of the house when I was first trying to rent the property, I noticed a picture of the tiles hanging loosely from the base. It must have been one of those things that my brain defrags as irrelevant information and never fully noticed it. The falling was seemingly just a natural occurrence, and my brain conjured up further paranoia to fuel my delusion of an intruder. So that's it. Mystery solved. Thank you everyone for your helpful suggestions and concern for my well-being. It did not go unnoticed by me, and I apologize for wasting the community's time. I'm also going to get checked out tomorrow. I feel fine and I've been breathing natural air for a few hours now, but I'd rather be safe than sorry. Sending everyone really big hugs of gratitude. And this seems to be a very common reoccurrence. People's carbon monoxide detectors make them go a little bit crazy. And this is like the 5th story I've read now where the carbon monoxide detector is to blame and carbon monoxide as a gas is to blame because, yeah, it will make you hallucinate, it'll make you crazy, and guess what? It can also kill you. A carbon monoxide leak in your house is very, very, very dangerous, and so please, everyone watching, make sure you have a carbon monoxide detector in your house or apartment because, you could either go a little bit crazy like this lady, or you can literally die from it. And they're like 15 to 20 bucks on Amazon. Just buy one because it's much better to spend that money, get it installed, spend that time getting it installed than not waking up one day, because that happens to a lot of people every single year. And I have read literally 5 stories now on people who go crazy because of a carbon monoxide leak in their home. So yeah, this is just a very common reoccurrence, it seems now. And luckily, the OP didn't have some crazy guy going through her house and leaving stuff out that wasn't supposed to be out. But very, very concerning. But she's very lucky that she survived because This could have been a lot worse, but like I said, it's also good that there isn't a crazy guy going through her house or living in her attic or whatever, but very interesting thread, and on to the next one. I think my new landlord is schizophrenic and I'm running out of money. And the post reads as follows. For background, I, 29 female, have been really struggling with depression and grief for the last year and a half since my mom passed away. I ended up quitting my job about 2 months after she passed because my mood swings were unpredictable and I had received a large sum of money from the sale of my late grandparents' house. I moved in with my brother and his fiancée for 3 months, and it was incredibly toxic. I ended up going into an inpatient mental hospital, and they threw me out and changed the locks. I stayed in an Airbnb for 2 weeks until I found someone who was willing to rent to me while I technically had no income. I'll call her Susan. Susan called me very excitedly after I responded to her listing on Craigslist. It was a half duplex, 3-bedroom with a front porch and a yard for a very reasonable price, so I was excited too. I drove an hour to meet her and toured the apartment, and I loved it. It just needed a good cleaning. I ended up signing the lease the next day, and she chatted with me for over an hour. She's 67, has leukemia, and her husband passed away a few years ago. She has a son that lives a few states away and doesn't talk to her very often. She seemed to switch topics rapidly, but I just figured she was older and lonely and was excited to be talking to someone new, so I didn't think anything of it. Cut to a few days later. I moved in the day before and I hired cleaners. She'd been trying to clean the place herself, but her idea of clean and my idea of clean are very different. Plus, she shouldn't be doing that kind of physical labor. I told her about it already, and she seemed grateful and promised to reimburse me. The cleaners arrive, and she starts screaming at them. I told you to never set foot on my property again. You have 10 seconds to leave. I came out on the porch and tried to calm her down. I said, Susan, these are the company I hired to come clean. And she turned on me. I told you what she did to me, and you hired her. Am I going to have to evict you next? I spent the last week cleaning, and you hire cleaners? It's a slap in the face. Just bonkers. The owner of the cleaning company came to try and reason with her, and eventually she let it go. They cleaned, very rushed because they were clearly uncomfortable, and Susan was pleasant with me the next day. A couple days later, I wake up to a flashlight in my window. Susan is outside with 2 cop cars. By the time I put on pants and came downstairs, they were knocking on my door. The cops asked to come in and speak privately, and they said that Susan believes I was in her bedroom. I obviously wasn't, and they basically said, well, lock your doors, and if anything happens, call us. Gave me the incident report number and left. The next morning, I wake up to her pounding on my door, screaming at me. I opened it and recorded a full 5 minutes of her screaming at me about conversations that never happened. Things like me demanding for food and demanding a repairman. She taped an eviction notice written on a doily on my door and tried to wrestle my phone out of my hands. I called the cops on her. They came and told me to change the locks. She can't evict me without going to the courts, and told us to keep our distance. Since she has a key to my apartment, I put a heavy air conditioner in front of the door that night, and when I woke up, it had been pushed in about a foot. So now I have a chair wedged under the knob. And then the OP gives us an update 3 days later. Their update is titled, Breaking My Lease After 8 Days Due to Paranoid Schizophrenic Landlord. And the post reads as follows. My main questions. Can I get my money back? Can she take legal action against me? I moved in on July 10th. I signed her 2-page lease for 1 year and gave her $3,300 at signing. First, last, security for $1,000 each, plus $300 for trash for the year. In just the last 8 days, she has accused a cleaner I'd hired of being someone who broke into the apartment and stole an air conditioner. This woman had never been to this property before. Accused me of being in her bedroom, calling the cops at 3 a.m. They spoke to me, told me to keep my doors locked, and call them if any issues arise. Let herself in at night while I was sleeping, and I'm 100% sure she stole my keys, but I can't prove it. $600 to change the locks and get a new key fob for my Subaru. Called the cops, but she wouldn't answer the door, so they said there was nothing more they could do, just call a locksmith and try to bill her. Multiple nights, she's pounded on our shared bedroom wall between 2 and 4 a.m., lasting up to 30 minutes. Screamed at me for conversations that never happened. She seems to think that I've demanded she give me food and yelled at her about repairing the attic stairs. Neither of these happened. Physically assaulted me by trying to wrestle my phone out of my hands inside my apartment. Called the cops on this one too. They're issuing her a citation, however. She's been stealing my mail. I finally set up a camera and I'm going to catch her tomorrow. I'm tired of wedging a chair under my doorknob at night. I'm tired of being woken up in the middle of the night. I'm tired of being scared to leave my cats home alone. I'm tired of this costing me so much money. Moving twice, changing the locks, buying a camera, paying to start a second lease at a new place. I'm broke and I'm pissed. I can move into a new apartment as early as Monday, but I'm unsure how to proceed. Can I write a letter to her asking to give me my money back or else being legal action? Or should I go straight to getting a lawyer? Please, help. I've been out of my mind anxious this entire week. And then the OP makes an update later that day saying suspected landlord of stealing my mail, so I set up a camera. Unfortunately, I didn't get any mail today. She didn't even check her own mailbox. Man, I can't sign up for USPS informed delivery because I'm pretty sure she stole the change of address confirmation letter with the code I needed. And the OP posted a video alongside of this, but the video is no longer accessible, so let's just read the video transcript. Camera angle shows a covered front deck showing view of two entryways that are side by side. A bicycle leans on the rail. Neighboring houses can be seen in the background. A barefooted woman with hair and a bun on top of her head exits one door, wearing what is clearly a tank top / shorts pajama set in white with butterflies on them. She goes directly to the mailbox by the other door, lifts the lid, looks inside, and then returns into the door she exited from. The clip is short, only 5 seconds long. And then the OP makes a final update saying, I have proof my landlord stole and hid my keys. What now? Today, Susan asked me to have a chat with her on the front porch. I started recording. First, she apologized for her behavior, saying she was without her heart medicine for 8 days and that's why she was acting crazy. But then she went right back into being rude. She told me changing the locks was illegal. A cop literally told me to. I said, well, now you'll have nice new locks and I'll give you the keys when I leave. She said she doesn't trust me and she needs the original key back. So I said, I can't. My keys went missing. And then she admitted to taking them and throwing them on the porch by the fish tank. The fish tank was gone before my keys went missing. Later, she showed me that they were in a bush in front of the porch the whole time, and I recorded this too. But here's the problem. I asked her when she took them, and she thinks she took them out of my hands. This never happened. She also thinks she took them because she was mad I changed the locks, which obviously wasn't the case. I changed the locks because my keys were missing. What can I do here legally? I have video of her admitting to taking them and hiding them, and also video of her digging them out of the bush, but she's insane and doesn't have good memory. It's her word against mine about when she stole them. I'm 100% sure she came in at night and took them. She claims she took them out of my hands. And then the OP makes one final update saying, I'm getting the keys to my new place on Monday and I'm getting the fuck out. And then a few days later, she makes a post saying, "Yes, I'm out and safe. Thanks for asking." And that is the last we have heard from the OP, but God, what a nightmare. The OP informed us on how horrible her year had already been. Her mom passed away, and she was just having a really tough time personally. And then she gets her own place, finally, and it's a paranoid schizophrenic landlord. And breaking into her house, stealing her stuff, calling the cops on her. I mean, I just feel so bad for the OP here. Like, they just could not catch a break. But luckily, it seems like they finally caught a break, got a new place, and hopefully all is well there. Hopefully the OP got their money back and all that. But yeah, we have not received any more updates, but I wish OP the best, and I hope everything's good now because, God, that was just a series of disturbing events. I found my brother-in-law's Reddit account, and I'm genuinely terrified for my family. And the post reads as follows. First and foremost, I will not be sharing brother-in-law's username. I know this will cause most people to call this post fake, but his account has a lot of private information about many members of my family, including what are essentially dox bins and other private info. He does not know I know about this account, and I don't want anyone to go to his account to leave comments or message him. I'm 21 female. My sister, Jane, who's 28 female, has been with John, who's 27 male, for 2 years. I found his account totally randomly. I Googled his name as he's a journalist and found a Reddit account with the same name. Think John _Doe is dead 1997. I clicked on it and found tons of Reddit posts ranting about his girlfriend's family, mainly her little sister. At first, I thought I just came across a random, disturbed individual, but clicking on the posts revealed much more. Both my sister and I have unique names. Not super rare, but uncommon enough that they're noticeable in a list of names, and neither of us have met anyone with the same names as us. Plus, our surnames aren't super basic either. Think Aura Fernsberry. Fake, but similar name to myself. He also mentions enough personal details for it to be undeniably him. I wouldn't be writing this unless I was 99% sure. The posts are all either posted to vent/rant subs or straight to his Reddit page. They all have like 0 to 3 upvotes and a few comments spread across from what I can tell to be 100 posts. They're all mostly complaining about Jane, me, or our mother. The most concerning post is about me though. I have a varied past with men, mainly influenced by SA. I'm in therapy, but it has made me a lot more wary among men I do/don't know. This apparently enrages John. In this post, he details out how he plans to offer to drive me home next I visit them. But instead of taking me home, he'll detour and take the scenic route through the country lanes in our town. He says he wants to make me afraid enough that I'll do something to her. But after 15 or so minutes, he'll turn around and drive me home, therefore showing me that not all men are creeps and want to hurt her. His logic seems to be that since he acted weird but didn't hurt me, it should click in her brain that not all men are bad. The post is very long, like scrolling down for 15 seconds long, but he rants about how it's unfair that I flinch around him when he makes big gestures or yells at the TV, because he'd never do anything. He says he can fix me more than my therapist. A lot of the post is weird incel-y talking points. I was bawling reading the whole thing. There's one comment telling him to get help, but John just responds, "I don't need help. She does." His comment history is also concerning. A lot of weird incel talking points, which doesn't make sense as he has a girlfriend. I'm not super versed in incel ideology. A lot of stuff about SA, women's roles in relationships/society, other races, ethnicities, religions, etc. I'm terrified of John. We weren't close before, but we didn't hate each other. To me, he was just a grown man with a vastly different interests, and we would never mesh cleanly. Now, I don't know what to think. My mind is frazzled. I'm going to tell my sister, but I don't know how. I have screenshots of everything, links, etc. I just don't know how to lay it all out. Also, I need coping mechanisms. I'm in a constant state of pre-panic attack. I can feel it in my chest, but it's not tipping over into a full panic attack, which is making me genuinely crazy. I'm sorry for the long post, but thanks in advance. Edit. As of 2 hours ago, I made my mom and uncle aware of what I found. Every screenshot, screen recording, and link. My sister is currently on a work trip, so we're waiting for her to come back in 2 days. His account is still up as of 20 minutes ago. Thanks for all your advice. Mom, uncle, and I are figuring out the best way to tell my sister. And now let's get into some comments. Someone says, ooh, I did not want to be the first comment here. This is so much to unpack. Do you think your sister will believe you? Talk to your parents/family first. They should hear about your fear before they hear from your sister that you're talking shit. Is your sister safe? I have no clue what else to say other than I'm going to come back in case anyone has coping mechanisms for your pre-panic attack thing. I'm experiencing the same thing, and it's also driving me insane. Pre-panic attack is a good way to describe it. I've been struggling with it for years, and there's no medical term for it, so thanks for giving it a name. And then the OP responds saying, is your sister safe? This is why I want to tell her ASAP, because I don't know. Not anymore anyway. They seem happy together, but now I'm rethinking everything. Thanks for your advice. Another commenter says, why is he so obsessed with you? He has a girlfriend and prefers to vent about you. Are you that close to him? He is not in a normal place mentally. Show the text to your sister and mother. He can be abusive to your sister. And then the OP responds saying, we're not close. I live closer to my sister than any of our family, so I see her/him fairly often. But I never go to see him. He's usually just there, which is fair because it's his home too. But I never go with the reason of hanging out with John. Just my sister. We're not close. We don't have much in common, but get along well enough. I had no interest in being his friend or anything before for many obvious reasons, but especially now. I have no idea why he's so obsessed with me. It's freaking me out. Another commenter says, how does he know so much about your trauma? Who told him? That's a very important question to solve beforehand. And then the OP responds saying, last year when I was SA'd by my now ex, I ended up calling John to pick me up because my ex lived in a different city and was supposed to give me a ride back. I had a breakdown in his car and told him what happened. I hadn't intended to tell anybody about what happened, but I couldn't keep it in. Also, my sister and I both witnessed abuse from our father, which I'm sure she told John about, and he correctly assumed I was also inflicted. Another commenter says, does this mean your parents aren't safe advocates in this situation? And then the OP responds saying, no, not at all. I'm planning on telling my mom too. The no telling anyone about the SA comment was more of a spur of the moment traumatized and mortified 19-year-old. And then the OP responds to a troll saying, but I don't think all men are evil. John literally just projected that onto me. He wrote that assumption in a post where he detailed graphically how he wanted to make me fear for my own safety to fix me because he's upset I have trauma and CPTSD. And I'm somehow as creepy as he is and terrifying. I would love a deep dive into how you can go to that conclusion, because reading some Reddit posts don't feel the same as what John is doing/planning to do. And then the OP gives us an update about 2 months later, and the update reads as follows. As I mentioned in my last post, I had made my mom and uncle aware of the situation. We all agreed that waiting for Jane to come back home from a work trip to tell her was the best course of action. When she got back, we sat her down to explain everything. I showed her the screenshots, the posts, and walked her through everything John had said. She was quiet at first, just reading through the messages with this shocked look on her face. She started accusing me of overreacting or somehow getting the situation wrong. She said that maybe John was just venting and didn't actually mean any of it. She also suggested that I might be reading too much into his post because of my past trauma. My mom and uncle tried to step in and back me up, but Jane wasn't having it. She kept saying that we were blowing things out of proportion and that we didn't understand John like she does. At this point, she was getting really upset and we were all talking over each other. Then Jane said that I've always been distant from John and that maybe he felt uncomfortable around me because of how I act. At that point, I was done. I made it clear that if she decided to stay with him, I would have to limit my contact with both of them. My mom and uncle backed me up on this, and we all said that we couldn't trust John to be a part of our lives anymore after seeing what he wrote. Jane stormed out of the house after that. She's barely spoken to me since, except for a couple of cold texts saying she needs to process the situation. On Monday, it's Wednesday tonight, Jane showed up to my door, completely unannounced. She looked like she hadn't slept, and the first thing she did was apologize. I was shocked because I wasn't expecting her to come around so quickly. She told me that after she left, she couldn't stop thinking about the posts, and she started going back over everything in her head. She said she told John about the situation, and when I went to check, all his stuff had been deleted. This annoyed me and my mom, who was on the phone, as we told Jane to keep quiet for safety reasons. Luckily, I have all the evidence saved. She said that John had blocked me on everything to preserve his career, and that he was super pissed off with me for stalking him. He even told my sister that the account wasn't him, rather someone at work who hates him. I obviously don't know everything that happened between them, but it's caused a rift between them. I've moved in with my uncle for the time being, as I was afraid of John showing up on these first few nights. We looked into legal options about the post, but found nothing that would help us. My uncle said he's going to help me get in contact with his work, but I'm scared of John's reaction if I did that. As of current, my sister isn't totally settled on leaving John, so I've gone LC with her. She said her reasons for staying with John is because she just can't see John acting like this. Luckily, I have friends and family who are on my side. I'm sorry this update is kind of bleak. And that is the last update we have received from the OP, and it's been about a year since we've heard from her, so I think this is going to be the last update on the situation. I think my boyfriend is stalking me, and the post reads as follows. I recently moved to a new state a few hours away from where my boyfriend lives. This was for school, and also because I had an issue where my boyfriend hid a camera in our bedroom, so he was spying on me. Okay, already very concerning. It pretty much ruined our relationship. Behind my apartment building is an old parking deck. No one parks back there, and it is patrolled by the police. A few weeks after I moved in, I noticed an old truck parking at the top directly across from my window where they could see inside. Like, he parked where his window lined up with mine. It was during strange hours like 3 or 4 in the morning. I started closing my blinds at night. It was such a strange thing too, because it's not like they could see inside very well, and I'm only sleeping with the covers wrapped around me. I couldn't believe that someone would really park across the street to watch a stranger sleep. Anyways, they kept coming back. I'd peek out the blinds and the truck would be there about once a week. I couldn't figure out who it was, just the color of the truck. I started thinking about a comment my boyfriend made about how from the parking deck you could see straight inside my windows. I didn't think much of it at the time because it seemed obvious that someone would be able to, but I started to wonder if maybe he was the one driving up there at night. My boyfriend doesn't own an old truck, but my dad does that matches the truck I keep seeing. To be fair, it is a generic white Ford, and he mentioned he's been letting my boyfriend borrow it. Also, this never happens when my boyfriend is there. I am terrified. I do want to break up with him, but now I'm afraid that the stalking will get worse. I'm hoping it's a weird stranger, but for reasons, I do believe it's him. And to be honest, I mean, I don't know why she's wishing it's a weird stranger, because either way, it's concerning. I think whether or not it's her boyfriend or a weird stranger, it's equally as concerning, And to be honest, she should call the cops when he's there next, or when the stalker's there. But now let's get into some of the top comments. Someone says, that is a lot to unpack. How many weeks? You then decide to close blinds? Who doesn't know dad's old truck? I don't know why someone would just watch someone sleep. I'm under the covers, but blinds open, closed. Can you actually see a person in there? Boyfriend mentioned this spot and seen in your place. I could have asked dad immediately at 3 a.m. Where's your truck? I think I'm looking at it. Dates? Cams in bedroom? Dad, stop loaning the truck out? Who doesn't know their dad's truck, even if it's secondary or the work truck? If you're still calling him boyfriend and establish it's the truck, why don't you just bang on the window with the police in tow and inform him that he is no longer a boyfriend, even a weird obsessed one? Would knock on the door. Sorry, but to me, your story doesn't sound right. Whether this is real or not, please try and get the help you need. And then the OP responds to the commenter saying, well, to clarify, when I first saw the truck, I thought someone just parked there for whatever reason. I closed my blinds, then I opened them the next night. When I saw the truck again a couple weeks later, I thought it was weird again and kept them shut, this time for weeks. The same night that I finally felt comfortable to open them again, I saw the truck was back. I took a picture and could make out a person sitting in the seat, but it's not detailed. I also can't see the license plate because of how they are parked. It's just a generic white Ford truck owned by many people, which is why it took me so long to think about my dad's truck and the possibility of it being him. And then the OP gives us an update saying, I'm happy to say he is now my ex. He did not take the news well and broke my phone, which is why it took me time to update because I had to get a new one. I did confront him about the stalking. He told me I was crazy and said that women don't know cars, so it could have been a white van instead of a white truck. He also said the person might be working or busy doing something. He was unconcerned about the situation, so either it was him or he doesn't care that someone is looking into my windows. I told him the next time I was calling the police. Either way, it has stopped. I'm 90% sure it's him because of these stupid excuses. Who drives to an empty parking garage and parks directly across from someone's window to work instead of all the other empty spaces and floors that aren't facing my window? I talked to my dad, and my boyfriend has been borrowing his truck for months now. Apparently, he told my dad it was for work, so I did speak to my dad about taking his truck back. As for why my dad lent out his truck, they live in the same town. I am the one who moved away to a new state by myself. I've checked my bedroom for hidden cameras. There are none that are obvious, but I feel like there could still be one. If anyone has tips for finding hidden cameras, let me know. And I mean, there's just so much to unpack here. I mean, in the first post, the OP said, we had an issue where my boyfriend hid a camera in our bedroom, so he was spying on me, and they were still together. I mean, that's concerning enough, and so obviously she's concerned about another one. And I think it's crazy how her ex-boyfriend said, girls don't know truck, so it might be a white van instead of a white truck. I just thought that was kind of funny because it's so ridiculous. Oh, girls don't know cars. It could have been a white van. Doesn't matter. I don't know. That's just funny because you can just tell how ignorant and stupid this boyfriend is, who's obviously stalking the OP. But let's get into some comments here. Someone says, please go to the police and lodge a report. You need to create a paper trail in case this escalates. You often need multiple incidences on record before the police will do anything. Consider getting some Nest cameras to record the area outside and around your front door and bedroom window. Just because it has stopped doesn't mean he might not start up again. Take a few proactive steps now to protect yourself just in case. Be safe, OP. And I completely agree, because if this guy was stalking her before, he's not going to just stop. Like, these guys usually keep going unless they get in big trouble. So the OP has to be very careful with how they approach it, and they need to protect themselves by, like the commenter said, getting cameras, etc. And someone responded saying this, and go to a domestic violence shelter, even if only for the paper trail and contact of someone who can step in and help you of his behavior escalates. Now that you've left him, there is a very high chance it will. Someone else comments regarding the cameras saying, many cameras emit infrared light. There are apps for phones that can help you discover these lights. Plus, you may want to seek a counselor because this is a traumatic experience and paranoia can be debilitating if not treated. Best of luck to you. And then everyone else is saying how idiotic he is and how scary it is because, yeah, very, very scary. And unfortunately, we have not received a single update ever since this final update, so I don't know. I don't know what happened, but to be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if the OP's ex-boyfriend kept stalking her because if he sat out there every single night for weeks, like he's not going to just stop now that she confronted him. And he might even be like more motivated now because she broke up with him. So he might be more motivated to stalk her and do whatever he's doing. Very creepy. And I just hope the OP is safe and well. And I hope the situation did not escalate. And I hope she listened to some of the Reddit commenters' advice and went to the police, let them know to create a paper trail. But anyways, hopefully she's safe. And on to the next one. I found a hidden camera pointed at where I breastfeed my baby. God, that is terrifying. But now let's get into the post. I'm honestly kind of freaking out right now. For context, I'm a teen mom to my 7-month-old daughter. I recently started nannying again because I needed the income, and I took a job that wasn't ideal. 2 kids in my neighborhood for $16 an hour. I used to study child health and development in college before I dropped out to raise my daughter, and I've got about a year and a half of nannying experience. I found this family on Care, and looking back, there were so many red flags. She had no profile picture, she refused a phone interview, saying she only does in person because she can tell character better that way. She used military time for everything, so I assumed she was ex-military. She's not. And she insisted on meeting at school, not a coffee shop or anywhere public, I suggested. She was 15 minutes late and showed up in short shorts, no bra, slippers, and high socks. Not exactly the strict, polished person I expected based on her tone over text. She had 3 kids, 6 female, 4 female, and almost 2 male. The interview actually went okay, and because she lived nearby, I accepted the job on the spot. She mentioned paying me as a 1099 contractor, which is illegal for household employees in my state, so I told her she'd either need to do under-the-table cash or a proper W-2. She chose cash, but refused to sign a contract because she didn't want paper trails. Another red flag I should have listened to. During the interview, I specifically said no secret nanny cams. She told me she only had 2 cameras, both in her kids' room, which I am completely fine with. But then weird comments started happening. One day, I served the kids some fruit that was already cut up in the fridge. Later, she mentioned, "You forgot to wash it." Another time, she brought up a snack I had packed for my daughter, one I never left at her house. She mentioned me wiping down her counters with a reusable towel, something she couldn't have known unless she was watching me. She also somehow knew I use voice to text because of my dyslexia, something else I never told her. At that point, I assumed there was a hidden camera or microphone somewhere, which was super off-putting, considering she knew I breastfed my daughter and had specifically asked if there was any cameras. The vibe in general was just off. She made really degrading comments, like saying she doesn't understand why anyone would go to college for child development and strictly referring to me as a babysitter. She was dismissive, controlling, and constantly added new chores on top of childcare to the point that I could barely focus on the kids. Her daughter would also say some weird and concerning things, for example, "My mom's gonna be mad, but it's okay because she won't be mad at me. The floors are really dirty. You need to sweep them." And one time, she went on a minute tangent about silly, forgetful people who always forget everything after I left my lunchbox at their house overnight, along with this and some other stuff, and she said I just assumed she was repeating stuff her mother had said. But today was the breaking point. My daughter wasn't feeling well, so she wanted to be held most of the day. The 2-year-old knocked over a set of picture frames on himself. The house was not at all child-friendly. The 4-year-old had multiple meltdowns, and when I tried to calm her, she started kicking and hitting me. I let the mom know I'd need to leave early, and she agreed as long as both kids were down for a nap first. While I was feeding my daughter before leaving, I noticed the Alexa was flashing green every time I spoke. I Googled it and learned that means there's a drop in basically. Someone is listening in. That's when I started to look around the home, and sure enough, I found a hidden camera tucked inside an open purse, pointed directly at the chair where I breastfeed my daughter. I froze. My stomach dropped. I grabbed my baby, packed up our stuff, and left without unloading the dishwasher. A few hours later, she sent me a long text rant about clarifying expectations. Basically, she wanted me to be a maid, not a nanny, all while watching 3 kids. After talking to my husband, I've decided that I'm quitting immediately. I'm still shaking that someone recorded me feeding my baby without consent. I'll update once I officially quit and send her my message, but seriously, trust your gut. And now let's get into some of the top comments. Someone says, 2 words, police report. Someone else replies to that saying, holy shit, OP, that's absolutely disgusting and definitely illegal in most places. Recording someone breastfeeding without consent is a serious crime, like exploitation level serious. Document everything you can remember and definitely file that police report ASAP. The fact that she was so sketchy about paper trails makes way more sense now. She knew exactly what she was doing. Someone else says, call the cops, call the cops, call the cops. If possible, take a picture of the camera spot, assuming you're ever going back there. Someone else says, I would report to the police and the website. It's unbelievable that not only would she be recording you like a weirdo, but also using you as a maid when you were hired to take care of the kids. But for real, how do you know she's not selling videos of you? She sounds off the rails. And I'd even make that connection. That's totally true. If she's recording it, she could be posting it somewhere or doing God knows what with the videos, which is so terrifying. And now the OP gives us an update. Let's get into it. I found a hidden camera pointed at where I breastfeed my baby. I forgot to mention in my last post that I unplugged both the cameras and the Alexa before I left that day. Between that and my mom, who's a therapist and have talked to her before, strongly believing she's a narcissist, I decided I will not be returning. My mom actually helped me write a text to keep things calm and avoid any retaliation. The nanny mom knows where I live, so we wanted to be careful with how I worded it. Here is what I sent her. Thank you for sharing your concerns. Today was definitely a rough one with sick kids, lack of sleep, and a lot of challenging behaviors. After reflecting, I feel that with the expectations and the different ages, this position isn't the best fit for me. For safety reasons, I believe it would be better for you to find someone else. 2 male knocking down the picture frames today because I was preoccupied with 4 female, and my daughter has really shown me that it would be best for me to step away immediately for everybody's safety. And to be honest, that was a very, very respectful and chill response in my opinion, or a text. Like, if that was me, I'd be like, hey weirdo, why the fuck are you recording me when you said you wouldn't be recording me or have any sort of cameras? Like, that was a very calm and collected response. But then she replied with, okay, wow, that was pretty unexpected. I disagree with the immediate safety concern, especially being that he is 20 months old and didn't do it with malicious intent, but I respect your decision. I will calculate your time and pay you accordingly. My mom said this is a typical response of a narcissist, taking her child faults as her own. I just replied, thank you, and she did end up paying me, but only about 1/3 of what I was owed. Here's the message she sent with the payment. Paid. 30 minutes removed for unfulfilled obligations that I had to tend during my lunch today, and 6 hours removed for previous overpayment of miscalculated hours. Thank you for your time with us. Oh my God, that just pisses me off. 30 minutes removed, and like that just, okay, I'm not even gonna get into that. That is just wild that she paid her 1/3 of what she owed. But let's continue. The unfulfilled obligations she's talking about, dishes. I'd already cleaned, but didn't put away from the night before when I wasn't even working, and not sweeping the floors. Also, looking back, I feel like there was a lot of mind games she would play with me through stuff she heard and saw, including her miscalculating the hours. She randomly started counting my 5 hours days as 6 hours and would constantly mention it and write it on my clock-in sheet. I don't know if she was testing me, it just feels odd. She would also constantly repeat that she was a good person and had good morals, even sometimes going as far as repeating she's a good person 3 times in the same conversation. I haven't filed the police report, but I also don't have any photos. I've reported her to the CARE website, and she already has a post up. I'm planning to check in occasionally to see if it's taken down, and she hired somebody else. They sort of live in my neighborhood, so maybe I'll be able to catch the nanny on a walk and give her a heads up. They also had a nanny before me that left abruptly as well. A few people pointed out in my last post that I was being severely underpaid. You're right. I've already started looking for other nanny positions and have been offered $22 to $25 an hour, which just confirms how much I was being taken advantage of. And then the OP makes a quick edit saying, it has been about 4 days. I mentioned I had found her on CARE. I saw a post up now. She's offering $15 to $18 an hour. The $18 an hour is a lie. I doubted she'd find anyone in that price range, but sure enough, her post is taken down. I looked in her account, still up, so I assume she found a new nanny. I took the long way to work and drove by her house, and sure enough, a mom of 1 or 2 kids was standing outside holding their baby. Can't help to think she's trying to do this to another mother. I'm afraid to say anything to this mom because what if it's her family? Once again, my mom has practically diagnosed her as a narcissist, and I'm terrified of what she would do given she knows where I live. And now let's get into some comments. Someone says, I didn't understand how you left the first post. Weren't you watching children? Did you leave them alone in that house? I'm not being negative. I would be very angry to be on an unknown camera, even if I wasn't breastfeeding. And then the OP responds saying, no, the mother worked upstairs from home. And then some people ask if the OP should post the information on Nextdoor and other nannying sites. And the OP said, I've thought about this. I posted it in a local nannies group just to give people a heads up. Another commenter says, tell her that she either pays you everything you're owed or you'll sue her for failing to pay you properly and videoing you. She violated the law by paying you, not as an employee. Another commenter says, I understand why you're reluctant to file a police report, especially since you don't have any evidence, but I really urge you to call CPS and tell them about secretly being filmed while breastfeeding. That's literally exploitation. In fact, a good reason to just file the report anyway, whether you have concrete evidence or not, is that the video is likely to end up being posted online for profit or otherwise. This woman is a predator. That doesn't necessarily mean that she's a direct danger to her children, but I think a person who secretly records a baby being breastfed might also be doing similar things with the kids. Even if the kids aren't being exploited, the fact remains that their mother is a predator. If you don't call CPS, you'll spend the rest of your life wondering if those children are safe. And having said all that, I feel even more certain that you need to talk to the police. She didn't just record you, she recorded your baby. There's a certain kind of predator out there who likes breastfeeding specifically because it involves a child. If someone secretly recorded my child in any setting, I'd go scorched earth. You are not taking this seriously enough. And that is the last update we have ever got from the OP regarding that situation. But wow, I wonder what happened to the OP. I wonder what they ended up doing. I wonder if the OP ended up filing a police report or doing nothing, or possibly reporting it to CPS or doing whatever. I'm unsure, but hopefully the OP took the right steps to, further prevent this from happening to another mother or nanny or what have you. But very creepy scenario, and I just wonder what came of it. On to the next one. My wife abandoned my girls when she thought there was a home invasion. And the post reads as follows. My 34 male wife, who's 42 female, is a stay-at-home mom. Last week when I was at work and my two oldest were at school, 5 male and 3 male, my wife was sitting at the dining room table when she saw a man walking down the driveway and going to the front door. He had what she thought was a hammer. She went to the front door and the guy was trying to get in. The guy saw her and waved and tried to get in. She fled the house and ran out the back door. She left her cell phone and Apple Watch. She also left our twin girls, 8-month-olds. They were sleeping in their cribs. She ran through the neighborhood looking for someone to help her call the police. Eventually, she found someone and they called the police. The police responded and cleared the house. Turns out it was a repair guy who was supposed to go to our neighbor's house and had been told that no one else would be home and to just come in. She is mad at me for not being more supportive of her. I was stunned when she told me and was surprised when she said she left the girls. She is always yelling at me about how I don't do enough for the kids, unlike her who sacrifices constantly. I don't think that is accurate, but it is besides the point. We have been having major issues in our marriage for a long time apart from this. She is acting like this is one of the most traumatic events of her life, which is making me madder and madder. I'm having a real hard time putting this one behind me. If this guy had actually been a bad guy, she would have abandoned our girls to him, also she could save herself. Our house isn't that big, and people in the neighborhood and online know we have 2 little girls. I honestly don't know what to do. And then the OP makes an edit saying, this happened about a week ago. I spent about an hour on the phone with her that day trying to console her. I tried again that night and have been trying to take care of the kids and do all the chores at home. She has been focusing on what I think is a work from home job, but that she is lying to me about and trying to hide it from me. Other than that, she is going out with her friends to bars. She does not believe in therapy and is refusing to go to marriage counseling that I set up for us online after the kids go to sleep. A big issue I'm having is the double standard that if I had done this, she would have never forgiven me and probably divorced me. We had a fight because when we moved to a new house, my side of the bed was on the far side from the door and that I need to be able to stop an attacker. I've been yelled at for abandoning my daughters when I take a shower in the morning before work and they begin crying. Or if she is sleeping in and one begins crying while I'm changing the other's diaper and it takes me a minute to finish. I totally understand this is a fight or flight and I'm not trying to Monday morning quarterback. I have not critiqued, let alone criticized her. The closest was when I was surprised when she told me she left the girls. Other than that call, or when I came home and she was annoyed that we don't have security cameras, we haven't really talked about it. Second edit. She has a phone that worked. I texted her to check in and she told me to call her. And that's when I found out about this. When the kids are sleeping, she usually has it. It's a 1-story house. It's an L shape. The doors are at one other end of the L and the kids are on the other end. I don't know how long it took for her to get help. It was in the workday and most of our neighbors work. It's a walkable neighborhood, not in the country somewhere. I am currently in therapy. She has mocked me in the past for going to therapy and uses that as a way to invalidate my opinions. What do you know? You're just a depression case. So there's no way she will see a therapist. The police had a social worker with them who gave her a card for a therapist. And a lot of the comments under this post are really split. Some people are saying the wife's reaction is completely justified, and the other half is saying the wife's reaction is not justified at all, and she should have saved her kids, or even just approached the situation differently, because seeing a guy in the middle of the day, broad daylight, waving at you, smiling with a hammer, you'd be like, hey, what's up? I don't think you would immediately think it's a murderer, but that's just my opinion and a lot of the other commenters. But then the OP gives us an update, so let's get into that. The OP says, good afternoon, everyone. I wanted to thank everyone for all their comments and advice. I wanted to provide an update. Long story short, things are not going well. I feel like I am an airplane pilot who is trying to land a plane while it is also disintegrating around me, and that the time is now for me to bail out. I am also realizing how much I have normalized these issues, and that my good days would be at best marginal days for other marriages, but more likely would be awful. Since that post, I have really tried to do what I can to support her. I think I've been doing what I could to support her in the past. Anytime she wants to leave, she can. I do the lion's share of the chores at home. That means laundry, cooking, groceries, and morning and bedtime routines for the boys, who are school age. We do an informal system for dishes and the girls for the baths. It's close to 50-50 on that one. I also pay all the bills and handle all of the extracurriculars. One comment that people made was that she just gave birth 8 months ago, and that I should be more sympathetic. I totally get that. But since she gave birth, she has done 4 10K races, a marathon relay, and goes to a run group and dinner afterwards twice a week. She has also gone to networking events for her business that she is working on. Since that post, we've had numerous issues. We've had more days with screaming matches than here is a list of issues since the post. She woke up early on Saturdays, but didn't wake me or my son up for his early practice. I slept through my alarm. Didn't do anything to help us get ready. Her only question when he came back was how late we were. The moment I came home, she went back to bed. I had all 4 kids by myself, which is fine. I took the kids to the store to run errands. As soon as I came back in, she got in a shower and left, and refused to take any kids despite their cries. She refused to tell us where she was going. Sunday, she refused to go to anyone's hockey practice because she had to clean the house. While I am going to park at the rink with my kids crying, she calls me because she had hired a person to clean out our garage and wanted to know where we were going to move things. This was the first time I had heard of this. The woman did a good job of cleaning the garage, but she threw everything in the dumpster, including like unopened dress shirts. We had a thermonuclear fight on Monday. My eldest was screaming at me to get a second helping of dinner ready. I tried bluffing to send him to bed without the second helping. He goes straight to her, and she overrules me. Once they leave the room, I explain what I was doing, and she spiked her laptop on the bed and jumps up and starts screaming at me. Proceeds to follow me out of the room and is screaming in front of all 4 kids that I am a whiny bitch and not a real man, and that I'm trying to starve her kids. Funnily enough, this was just before our marriage counseling session. I kept it, and while I was in the waiting room, she continued screaming at me and attacking my character. When the session started, she refused to join. She was puttering around and started blending something. I tried to be as objective as possible, and the counselor said that she was impressed with that. In the last 5 minutes, I tried to just bring my laptop to her. When I did, she collapsed into the room she was in like Superman seeing kryptonite. She refused to do it. After that, I went to bed, and she woke me up and wanted me to set up our printer. We changed routers, and I hadn't had the chance to set it up yet. The lack of anger caught me off guard, and so I did it. She stood over my shoulder the entire time, silently, and refused to let me see anything. We had a couple of other fights along the same lane, but yesterday, Thanksgiving, we had a decent day. Not that it was overly affectionate, we just didn't fight. She slept in until like 12:50 in the afternoon and was snippy because I didn't have everyone ready yet. She wanted the girls in the car seats. She then began a 90-minute shower and makeup routine and helped with the kids for maybe 20 minutes. We ended up an hour late for Thanksgiving dinner, but for us, that was a good day. Yeah, there was no affection or anything, and we didn't speak in the car, but yeah, my mind forgot all the issues we had been having, and I wanted to make it work. That night, I woke up and attended to one of my girls who's very sick. That is the one thing that she has done exclusively, is attend to the kids when they wake up. She has taken kids from me when I do get up before her. She says that is because I'm working. One fight we had in September, she screamed at me as being selfish for taking my daughter and sitting with her. I had said that I didn't mind and that I was up anyway, and that became somehow me keeping her up because I couldn't sleep. The problem is this has become a trump card in every argument. But anyway, I was with my daughter from 4 to 5, and she slept in. This morning, I woke up at 9, the latest I've slept in that I can remember. I started making the kids breakfast and finishing the laundry. She was working on her laptop already. She snapped that I shouldn't bother cleaning the house because she had hired someone. I tried very, very hard and refused to escalate. but told her that we can't really afford a cleaning lady and that I've got it. She proceeded to call me a little bitch and scream at me in my face in front of my kids. One of my boys ran and hid, and the other sat and read on the couch, but he was not happy. She blamed me for not having time to clean and not having money, and that I couldn't clean or do laundry to her standards, and that she wasn't a cleaner. It was about an hour of just constant abuse. So I spent today cleaning the house, doing laundry, and taking care of all 4 kids. My sons did more cleaning than she has for a month. What has me really disturbed is not the abuse towards me. I've normalized that and I'm used to it. And honestly, if she kept it behind closed doors, I was prepared to wait out the next 17 years and leave once my kids were out of the house. But my eldest son is clearly mirroring her behaviors and internalizing the stress. It doesn't help that she constantly wants me to ask him who is his favorite, who yells more, and who is the better parent. When I refuse to do that, I am scared of what he might say. I guess Reddit that I don't know what to do. I am trying to fix this. I'm keeping an appointment scheduled with a counselor, but beyond that, other than talking to a lawyer, I don't know what I should do. She honestly doesn't see any issues with how she treats me. Her refrain is that I am a diamond, and if you leave me, you'll only be dating pebbles. Besides that fact that I don't want a divorce, and she spent the last 6 years threatening a divorce, I don't know I can show anyone who is that out of touch with reality, or seemingly so closed off from recognizing that they have a role in causing and fixing the problems with the marriage. And wow, man, that really did seem to spiral after the whole fake intruder situation. I mean, that was the catalyst for what seems like a spiraling, just a train wreck, because it was the wife leaving their kids when she thought it was a robber, and then he realized how many issues they're having. And I'm sorry that turned out to be like a drama story. I didn't think it was going to be a drama story with how that first initial post was read, but it did. But let me know down below if you'd like to see more family drama stories kind of like that. I thought it was a little bit interesting because it's just like, what's going on? The wife left the kids behind when she thought it was a robber. Whether or not you think that's right, I thought it was pretty interesting how the OP reacted to it. But yeah, comment down below if you'd like to see more stories like that in the future. But man, I do not see how the OP is going to save this one, and we have not gotten an update in 2 years. So I wonder if they stayed together or got divorced or what happened. But I guess we'll never know. Maintenance man at my job repeatedly threatened to, quote, blow someone's brains out. And the post reads as follows. And then this is quoting the OP's text messages. This is how the OP starts it. But the OP says, the police didn't do anything. Probably texted you, but I just wanted to say that I'm pretty sure Chris aimed a gun at someone at the hotel and talked about, quote, wanting to blow someone's brains out multiple times before leaving the property at 10 p.m. And then the manager responds saying, Merry Christmas. Thank you for letting me know. I will look into it and take care of it. Enjoy your holiday. And then the OP leaves some context saying, we work at a hotel. And he was going off earlier about how someone was tampering with his truck and how if he or I found you, you need to call me and then the police because I'm going to blow someone's brains out. Later, I get 2 guest complaints about someone screaming and pounding on doors. I call the non-emergency and they find nothing, so they leave. Later, Chris walks down. He was supposed to leave at 4 p.m. It's now 9 p.m. And I'm like, hey, Chris, that screaming was crazy. Do you know what room it was? And he's like, oh, that was me. Someone kept twisting the door and I almost shot the fucker, haha, and made the motions of pulling out a gun and aiming it. I'm freaking out internally. His eyes are really wide, and I secretly call my front desk manager and tell her what happened. He finally left at 10 p.m., and I texted my GM. Am I going crazy, or is this an insane response to me fearing for my life? Chris is in his 40s, and I'm 19 female. I don't really know how to handle or feel about this stuff. We live in Alabama, so it didn't really feel like the cops would do anything because he technically did not shoot anyone, and I wouldn't know who exactly he threatened. And right after that, I mean, it's just crazy. Why do people not call the police in these posts ever? No one in these Reddit posts ever called the police. This guy was threatening to blow someone's brains out, acting crazy, and you don't call the police? Come on. But now let's get into the comments. Someone says, that's extremely alarming and completely inappropriate. Anyone would be scared in that situation. And the OP responds saying, he's been put on leave and they're going to have a meeting with him Sunday and probably a drug test. Another commenter says, I don't know your manager, but maybe they thought that you might be scared, so played it down a lot. If they reacted badly, it might have scared you more. As a manager before, I would have said something like this as not to alarm people while smashing the secret panic button. Like, yeah, everything is fine. See you later. Have a good night. And then deal with it away from them. But like I said, I don't know them or if that's the case here. And then the OP responds saying, probably. I had a lot of trouble sleeping tonight and I've dreaded coming in today. Still a little scared he'll show up since I'm the only employee in the evening, but my front desk manager assured me he will be dealt with. And then there's a lot of comments asking on if the OP can find another job to put some distance for her own safety. And the OP responds saying, well, all my previous jobs were fast food. My first job's manager would scream every day to the point where I had stomach problems from the stress, and my second stole money from me. Whole other can of worms. The maintenance man honestly acted like a normal man until last night, so I don't blame them from hiring him. I'm just a bit frustrated at the text. I'm going to consider asking for a transfer depending on what happened Sunday, and I'm going to talk with my therapist/support group about what I should do next. Another commenter said, that's super concerning. You did a good job telling multiple managers. You handled the situation really well. I'm also a 19-year-old female, and I would have been petrified as well. And then the OP responds saying, I told my grandma, and she was like, did you have your mace? And I said, yes, grandma, but what would a mace do against a man with a gun? Another commenter says, I'd be quitting without notice. And honestly, I'd suggest that be what you do. With a response like this, I wouldn't feel safe working there either, and I'm a 26-year-old woman. A 19-year-old should definitely not have to deal with an individual like this. And then the OP responds saying, other than this incident, I've really enjoyed working at a hotel. I've definitely considered this. However, I do want to move next year, and since I'm so young, I want to get as much hotel experience as possible so I could continue hospitality when I move 6 hours away. This all happened last night, so I'm still considering my options. Someone else says, so you were scared enough to hide from him, but not scared enough to protect the patrons? Got it. And that was a downvoted commenter, by the way. And the OP said, the police didn't do shit when they were here to help. And what am I going to do against a deranged man with a gun when I have nothing? I cannot knock on every door and potentially trigger him into more rage. And I don't want to leave people stranded when they are traveling when he said he's about to leave. At the time, my thought process was, wow, I can't just call the cops and say he's scary since he didn't threaten me. He threatened someone else. And it's a he said, she said type of thing. So if nothing comes of it, the police will leave again and I'll be left here with a crazy man. And to be honest, I have to disagree with the OP there. I think calling the cops would have 100% been the right move. I mean, of course it'd be a he said, she said, but there's going to be cameras in the hotel for sure. They might have audio and they're going to see that you're telling the truth. And no one can be saying in a public setting, I'm going to blow someone's brains out because they're fiddling with my door handle or whatever. You can't be saying that. That's deranged. And this guy has a gun. Call the cops. But then people are questioning, why didn't the OP call 911? And the OP responds saying, I did when there was reports of someone pounding and screaming profanities on the 4th floor. The police came and did nothing. When the police came, they said, hey, we spoke to the guy who made the report and the maintenance man, and they both said they heard it, but it stopped. He never directly threatened me, just talked about how he was about to / wanted to shoot someone. Alabama is very lenient on gun laws, and the cops didn't take me seriously the first time, so in the moment, I didn't know what good it would be if they came back. And once again, I completely disagree with the OP here. Yes, some states are very lenient on gun laws in the United States, but they're not lenient enough to be like, oh yeah, this guy threatened to shoot someone, we're not going to do anything about it. Like, threatening to shoot someone is way different than just lenient gun laws. I think the OP 100% should have called the cops, but you live, you learn. And then the OP posts an update 2 days later, and the update reads as follows. I'd like to start this post by thanking people for being so supportive in my last post. I was stressed out my entire Christmas shift, and you all made me feel less crazy. I came up with a plan when I walked in today to ask to be transferred to day shift or to be transferred to another hotel. When I asked my front desk manager, she said she couldn't put me solely on mornings until we got busy again. In response, I brought up how uncomfortable I was with the maintenance man situation, and she assured me Chris was gone. I asked how that was assured, and she told me not to tell people, but Chris essentially skipped town and is now in a facility. I have no idea what kind of facility, but all I know is he's gone. I don't know if I want to take any further action, but for now, this has put me at ease. For those in my last post angry about me not being able to protect the guests, I want to try to put this into perspective. When Chris was threatening people with a gun, he did not tell me who he was threatening, and I couldn't go around calling each guest, as that would have caused a panic for the guests. And the cops already seemed irritated that I didn't have enough information about the situation the first time I called the police. He was about to leave, so if I called the police again, he would be gone by the time the cops could arrive. I called my manager instead of the police when he was ranting to me about him almost blowing someone's brains out, so management would firsthand see how insane he was reacting, since he had never displayed any of this behavior before. If my manager had told me to call the cops, I absolutely would have. I care about my guests, and my main concern was to not set him off and to quietly ensure he left. And with the resources I had, the best way to ensure that was to let him leave by myself. I don't know how many of you actually live in the South, but from my understanding living here, reporting his behavior is more complicated than you think. Alabama is a free to carry state, and you don't even need a permit to carry. There is no sign on the property stating guns aren't allowed, so he wasn't breaking the rules by having the gun on his person. There was no cameras where he told me he threatened someone with a gun. If I did somehow tell the police, it would be a, hey, Chris said he did this, but then I have no actual evidence or proof it happened besides the noise complaint. I might not have handled this in a way some would have liked me to, but please understand that I'm a 19-year-old with their first big person job in a situation I've never had to conceptualize before. None of my actions were out of malice. My actions were trying not to escalate or provoke a man with a gun. And I get what the OP is saying there. And I can relate. I'm 19 years old. I'm young. But still, it's like, it doesn't matter if it's a he said, she said, and you don't have evidence. You're still creating a paper trail and being like, hey, he threatened people with a gun and says he's going to kill somebody. Like, whether or not it's a free carry state or you don't even need a permit to carry, you can't just go around saying you're going to shoot people, whether or not it's that sort of state. And so I understand what the OP is saying, but at the same time, she should have called the police again. Even if there is no evidence, it's very important that she's a witness. It's not like they're not going to just completely disregard her, especially after he said, I'm going to blow someone's brains out. Maybe I'm not completely correct, but comment down below if I'm a little bit right on this, or if you agree with me, or am I wrong and the police would have just disregarded it. I don't know, but I think it's at least worth having the police around just in case he comes back and says something similar to that or does something this time. But I'm not going to just completely rag on the OP. I totally understand it's a scary situation, and she was disheartened by the earlier police situation, so I totally understand what happened, but I just think it's would have been better if she called the police. And I read a ton of these Reddit stories where people don't call the police and something ends up happening, and it would have just been better if they called the police, if that makes sense. But now the OP gives us an update 3 weeks later. Hey Reddit, since the situation has finally died down, I'd figure I'd give one last update. In my last post, I said Chris was gone because that's what my front desk manager told me. So imagine my surprise when I came in a few days later to a meeting with the general manager just to be told that not only was Chris not in a facility, but that he still works here, and how she was not planning to get rid of him. It started out as a meeting about trafficking, as a guest checked out at 4 a.m. and left his keys on the counter And a few minutes later, a random man not staying at the hotel grabbed the keys and went into the checked out guest dirty room. The incident happened on the 27th, 4 days after the whole Christmas Eve situation with Chris. Tell me why the GM used this as an excuse for Chris's actions. I asked her what I should do in cases like that night, since Chris could easily get into the office. She told me that Chris was in the building currently and that he was just mad, and people act differently sometimes whenever they are mad. And this incident with the room happened on the same day. Complete lie, by the way, so maybe he had a reason to threaten people with guns. By the end of the meeting, I broke down crying. She told me she didn't know keeping Chris employed here would cause this much of a reaction, and how she can't just fire someone because they scared you, and then promised she'd just schedule me and Chris on different days. I went home after that because I was so upset that a man who was that unstable and threatening people with guns at his place of work would still be around and facing no consequences, from what I've seen. Cut to the next time I come in and Chris clocks in. The promise to schedule us on different days was a complete fucking lie. I told the owner about what happened, which went to hospitality. I don't know if these things are slow or if they didn't do anything either, but I'm not sticking around. I quit. I found a job that's a bit more of a drive but will ultimately pay me more. My last day is next week. Front desk manager understands why I'm leaving and says she would too in my situation. The general manager cut my hours. She started cutting my hours a week before I turned in my 2 weeks. Chris wanted to apologize to me, but both managers told him not to talk to me. So yeah, that's about it. I'm stepping back from hotel work and going into marketing. Fuck Alabama and fuck the general manager for not only putting my life at risk, but also everyone else by keeping that man. I liked my job before this, and it's upsetting how little was done about this situation. And I completely agree with the OP there. I mean, they just were not listening to the OP at all. Like, they couldn't even schedule them on different days. And then it's totally understandable why the OP quit here, because I would feel completely unsettled as well if I was working with the guy who threatened to blow someone's brains out or blow anybody's brains out, whatever he said, which is obviously crazy. I mean, I think it's crazy how he wasn't fired, let alone arrested for threatening to kill somebody. But yeah, just such a wild situation. But luckily, the OP got a new job, and it seems like it pays more, so that's great as well. And luckily, nothing bad happened with Chris and the OP. And all right, guys, with that final post, that wraps up some unnerving true Reddit threads. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, follow me on Instagram, and follow me on Spotify. It helps more than you know. And if you enjoyed today's video, please check out some other videos on the channel. I'm sure you'll enjoy those. And I just want to say thank you so much to watching to the end of the video. I appreciate it so much. You guys are the best community on YouTube, for real. I love you guys, and hope you have a great night or day or whenever you're watching. And this was Snook, and I'll see you next time. Bye.